From Struggle Street to Millionaire's Row.
I was the poorest kid in the block, and I think that was drummed in time and time again.
Jo Vadillo took her first bold step onto the property ladder and she never looked back.
It was something I did for me and I did it on my own, and I really love that. I think that gave me a lot of power, a lot of confidence.
Today, Jo is a buyer's agent and mentor, inspiring others to achieve their dreams.
I know I've changed lives, I know that sounds very dramatic, but people thank me a lot for holding their hand. And a lot of my clients are single women, women who've come out of divorce. They're nervous first-time buyers, a lot of them, and I'm there to support them.
Discover the strategies to her success on 10 with Ty. Hi, I'm Tyron Hyde, the CEO of Washington Brown, the property depreciation experts. Now, I'm a qualified quantity surveyor and also a best-selling author who's helped hundreds of thousands of property investors over the years pay less tax through depreciation. I'm also an avid investor, which is why I created the podcast series 10 with Ty, where I ask the smartest people I know the same 10 questions to unlock the keys to their success and hopefully leave a playbook for my family and your family too about investing. Now, this podcast is general in nature and not specific to your financial circumstances. We always recommend you sit down with an accountant or financial planner before making any investment decisions. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to 10 with Ty. Today's guest is Jo Vadillo. She's a property investor, property developer, property guru, and property coach. She's also a book author, co-book author of Secrets of Property Millionaires. We're both on the front cover. Welcome to 10 with Ty, Jo.
Thanks for having me. What an intro. I love it.
Thank you. I read in your chapter that when you grew up, you spent the first 10 years of your life sharing a bunk bed with your mother at your grandparents' house. How did you go from Struggle Street to Millionaire's Row? What was the secret that you found, Jo?
You know what? It was not wanting that version of a childhood for my kids was a big motivator. And not to take, my mum was 17 when I was born. She actually put herself through university. We did share bunk beds in a very small room at my grandparents' house. So she tried really hard. It was very valuable for her to give me a really good education. So she did put me through a really great school, and I was the poorest kid in the block, and I think that was drummed in time and time again. Like, other kids were going on holidays where they'll, overseas, skiing holidays and all the rest. And I was wearing, Kmart clothes from 2 years ago. So I just didn't want, I felt it, and I didn't want that for my children. I didn't want it for me. So I was very ambitious to be able to give my kids, an amazing childhood, but also to not have to scrimp and save and be, constantly micro-checking your funds and things like that. And I also watched my mum grow up as well. Like, she met my stepdad. They built a house. They bought their first house together. They had their first baby together. My brother was born when I was in year 7. So I was privy to a lot of the things and sacrifices they did to get on the ladder themselves.
Growing up, was there anyone that was a financial motivator for you?
Good question. Isn't it funny? My motivation was more to rise above my station at the time. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? But a motivator. My first serious motivator in that space really hit me in my 30s. So right. I would have to say a lady called Rachel Barnes, who started up a business called Property Women, which I went on to acquire. She was definitely my first mentor in that space.
Well, tell us a bit about Property Women and what are the issues. Tell us a bit about Property Women to start with.
Yeah, Property Women started in 2006. It was a response to the fact that there was nothing else out there in the Australian market for women looking to get educated. And the fact is, yes, there was other educators out there, but there were just a different journey of education, and women had different struggles, and they're trying to get it, raise a family, and they didn't want to ask dumb questions or perceivably dumb questions in a space where there was also, men, or they thought judgment. And also property, even when I entered into the arena, I saw things like property development as a man's game. Isn't that terrible? I'm probably showing my Gen X position here, but I didn't even think about it as being a part of my own journey. So that was very much a response to the public's need. And when I just Googled one day, women property, it came up. It just happened to be serendipitously an event coming up that following Saturday in Sydney. I went along to it. My head fell off my shoulders with I didn't even know what equity was. I didn't know how I could use it. I was already very interested in property. I had already started to get on the bandwagon of watching a lot of the British renovation shows and things like that. So I was already a little bit, I loved the like how it was tangible and you can change it and you can add value. So I was kind of already, drinking from the Kool-Aid. But then I saw live examples of, other women who were doing amazing things. So that's where the infancy and of Property Women started from. And then I began speaking from the stage on there. We did events all around Australia. And it's the evolution of the business still exists. We're there. We introduce people to different people. Their property expert team that they need. So whether you're in WA or Darwin or Yeppoon, I can help you get a broker, an accountant. I can introduce you to a buyer's agent if you need. We've got online education there as well. So very much about helping, supporting, and creating community for women to further their property careers.
Fantastic. Is it like a membership subscription or is it a one-off?
We have a membership subscription called the Buyer's Advantage. So that's where you actually do get access to myself in an open forum. So you can actually ask me questions. So if it is like, I'm coming to auction, I don't know what to do. Who do I ask if I need some support in financial planning? And, can you help me look at this property? Do you think it's going to be, a great property that I can potentially split and, build on the back of, etc.? So the Buyer's Advantage is a course that we do offer through our portal.
And how many people are part of that program?
We've got all up 4,600 women in the community, and the program is only just launching. We had a previous program that I did shut down just before COVID, mainly because there was a lot of face-to-face events. So as the entire world changed and, COVID became very much a Zoom environment, that allowed us an evolution of what that course looks like as well.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned developments and women not doing developments, but I believe you're doing a couple of developments yourself. How are they going? How are you building? From my point of view, how are the building costs looking like?
Yeah, okay. Okay. Look, it's, it's been an education and I knew what I was getting into. And the reality is I put our plans on ice a little bit like many did, in lockdown. And I didn't want to wait any longer. Like I'm building two properties. So one we've just finished up and that's a dual key property that we did. I did the split and all the development applications, DA, the site works, everything was done from my desktop in Sydney for a property in Brisbane. And I did all that in 2021. And then the build process came through mainly in 2023. Then I'm building the Taj Mahal of all houses in Sydney, and that's our family home. But I can't wait for prices to reverse, evenings vary. That's, genuinely probably not going to come back the way people anticipate. But I've got to get on with my life. I've got to build this house. I already know that I'm not going to overcapitalize, and my children are getting older and I want a nice new shiny house. So, I got on with it.
Sounds like you deserve it. There's a thing called the Building Price Index, which is like the CPI, but it just focuses on construction costs, labour, materials. And the AIQS, which is our institute, has tracked this for since 1970. And I hate to tell you, but in that whole time, the BPI has never gone down.
Yeah.
Good news front, I did have a meeting with probably the second biggest developer in Sydney the other day. And he said to me that he's actually started holding off tendering trades because he believes that construction costs will come back a bit. So there's a little bit of hope for you there. Dwelling commencements are half what they were in 2021. Not a lot of developers can get the projects off the ground because of building costs. So there's going to be more trades available, which hopefully will bring your building costs down a bit, Jo.
Because I've got another one up my sleeve and I'm waiting on that one. So this is good news.
Well, then you've always got to go, well, if you give me a good price on this one, I'll give you the next job is the old trick, isn't it?
That's it. So, my accountant said you're mad to build and then you're even more insane to do two at one time. So circumstantially, it became a staggered event. But the one that we did actually just finish, it's a ripper. Like in terms of an investment, it's, been great.
And you've said you've got 12 in the book. And what are you up to, like 14 now, are you?
Oh, no. You know what? Not yet, because I'm going to split one into three. So in terms of investment properties, and that's my 2025 project. Again, like my husband Greg said to me, look, can you just focus on one thing at one time? So that's going to be a 2025 project. So I'm actually going to I guess that'll take one off the list and then add number three. So
cool.
Yeah, maybe you need to invite me back in 2 years and just see how great my hair is. And
maybe, I think so. All right, you ready to play Tim and Ty, Jo?
Let's go.
All right, Jo. Question number one. What has been your best investment?
I'd have to say our principal place of residence. It is, yeah, definitely. It's I just picked a great pocket. There was a little bit of a sleepy hollow, 10 k's out of Sydney, and in the 15 years since we bought it, even when I say the price of how much we paid, people like you can't even get a 1-bedroom unit in the entire council area for that now. So yeah, and then I pulled it down. But I've bought in one of these areas where the entry level price is such a large gap from that where people have actually built new properties and they're selling for $3 million more. So it gives me a wide burst to play with, and that's where I'm currently building.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's always hard to be that CGT-free principal place of residence, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's pretty unique in that Australia has that law. Not many countries in the world have a CGT-free home. So advice, if you can get on the property ladder and make it your house, keep it. All right, question number 2, Jo. What has been your worst investment?
I literally need to go fetal in a corner for a few hours after this conversation. You know what it is? It's the one I didn't buy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it was around 2009. No, it would have been around 2009. So it was not a great era of buying into the investment scene, but it was Surrey Hills townhouse, and I didn't buy it. So it'd been on the market for a little while. It was $570,000, and it was between me and someone else. And the agent said, literally, whoever gets here first with the signed contract. And I wasn't ready to jump until I did a pest and building report on it. So I know so much more now, and I know I can pull favour and rank really quickly because I've got such good connections. So I wouldn't be so scared about things like that. So I would have just gone, great investment, like blue chip all the way through. Yes, it needs a little bit of renovation work, but I know I would have made so much money just sleeping and just since then. So even when I'm in Surrey Hills, if I drive past this property, it's like, no, I don't even want to look at it. My worst investment was the one I didn't buy.
It can do your head in, though, thinking those things. How many places I have to drive past? Like when I first started doing work in Meriton, they were selling 3-bedroom units with sleeping views over Pyrmont for $220,000, right?
Oh,
and
my gosh,
I didn't remain it.
It just sounds like chicken feed now, but it is still, you still had to come up with the money then. But yes, you know just how much money you would have made.
Yep. All right. Question number 3. I'm looking forward to this one from you. What has been the most invaluable investment advice you've received, particularly since you've, come from humble beginnings?
Buy property that you can add value to. Buy property that's got a twist. So for me, one that I did the property development on a couple of years ago and just built on, I actually bought that property in 2009. So I knew all along I was land banking for a different day, and when I had some funds up my sleeve to actually come back and play with it. So I would say it's something you can add value to. It's not just a set and forget. It is something that you can tweak. And it could be that the property looks great, but you can convert a formal dining room into a 4th bedroom, or maybe it is ugly red brick, but you can render it and paint it and all the rest when you go to sell it. So it could be a fantastic street, premium location. It just happens to be one of the ugliest houses in the street. So for me, that's always been like a really good investment decision.
I might just add a little bit on that, and that I've seen, because we look at construction costs all day, every day, I've seen so many people overcapitalise. So for me, I might do a depreciation report on a terrace in Paddington, and the next door one was renovated at the same time. One client might have spent $300,000. The next client spent about $900,000, and it's exactly the same renovation. So for me, my tip would be when you're doing a value add, keep it to around the $50,000 mark, because that kind of where the carpets, you're just uplifting the carpets, the painting, the ovens, the dishwashers, the stuff that not superficial, but can quickly add value pound for pound more than doing a $500,000 renovation on a terrace, which can go to $1 million. You're far safer on a $50,000. Ask me. But that's just my advice of looking at.
And I say that to my clients also, because they do watch things like The Block, and they come out and they're like, they're going to pick up the biggest dump ever and think they can just shine it all up and then sell it for some gazillion dollars. But the reality is, I always say to people, it's going to cost you more and take twice as long than you anticipate. So if it is just cosmetic, exactly what you're saying, it's fresh carpet, it's changing the light switches, and just doing those little modest bits and pieces, but you're using the shell of the existing house, that's going to be where you get your best return.
Are you suggesting that some of these renovation shows don't show the whole picture, Jo?
I know. This could be actually groundbreaking. This is the scoop of the century here, Ty.
They make me laugh. All right, what are we up to? Number 4. Jo, question number 4. What is your ideal portfolio mix?
For me personally, I'm residential. Like I don't have commercial property or industrial. And yet, well, yeah, I'll sit on that for a bit. But for me, an ideal portfolio mix is like diverse areas. So I've got property in Brisbane and New South Wales. Brisbane, Southeast Queensland, and mix of blue chip, high yield. I've also got a couple that are really high yield. You know, in the areas are probably deemed slightly more working class, but they're neat properties. They perform so well. I've held them for a long time, and they rent out. In fact, my vacancy level across all my portfolio has been minimal. So, you know, for me, that is happy. I feel it's really controllable. And the properties that, you know, I am acquiring, or the ones, like I said, I've always bought things that I can split, or I can put a granny flat in the back, or I can do a really light cosmetic upgrade to it to you know, see a return on investment.
What areas are you looking at now for your clients? Any particular hot spots, as Terry Ryder would say?
Newcastle is like, I used to do a lot of stuff. So, you know, I'm Sydney based, but we've got, you know, staff in the Brisbane market and in Sydney. But when clients come to me and they've got 700 to 900,000 to spend, and Newcastle's becoming increasingly less affordable. Like it's just, you know, you're creeping out further and further. So I've been very much looking sort of west of that towards East Maitland area as well, because, you know, in the last couple of years, they put a new public hospital in that cost them $500 million, and this predates COVID. I mean, this is because the infrastructure was coming from the state government because of the climb in the population numbers as well. So that particular area has performed really well. So that's East Maitland. It's got the new public hospital. Stockland's put in a new shopping centre that was about $420 million. That's only been in there since maybe 2020. I could be wrong on my dates there, but it's, you know, employment-wise, it's fantastic because you've got people desperate for housing because they work in the mines, they work in the wine industry, wining and mining. You know, you're 40 minutes drive still from Newcastle beaches. So it is a good pocket, and it's just off the freeway from Sydney. So again, Central Coast, Newcastle, the employment is wide around that pocket there. I like it a lot.
Very good, like it. All right, question number 5. How would you invest if Sebastian came up to you? Sebastian's one of Jo's sons. Came up to you and said, Mum, $20,000, he's 20 years old. Mum, how would I invest that money? What would you tell him?
You know, out of all my kids, or 100 of them, I've got 3 of them. Yes, he is the most entrepreneurial. He's the one that's showing that, especially at this stage, and he's almost 15. You know, he is actually buying and selling things himself now. Like, this is like, so he himself, if he got in $20,000, he'd probably buy $20,000 worth of stuff and then sell it for 40. That'd be, you know, that's what he's doing. As a 20-year-old, and I hope he doesn't have this as a journey, I would be saying if you've run up any lousy credit card debt, or you have, what's the afterpay, all that yucky stuff, you know, crap debit debt like that, I'd say clean that up and start afresh, and perhaps look at things like share. There's all those like, you know, the trade apps that are out there now. So I would say, and especially to him, because I know he's great at doing his own desktop research, find out. I don't know. I'm not advocating for anything. I know one's called Sharesies. I would probably suggest that he starts looking at some of those apps that he can actually start to make that and start that investment journey, because $20K probably isn't enough to necessarily get on the ladder. With me as his mum, I might be able to do some sort of fund matching thing going on there, but I would say clean up your debt and start to look at, educate yourself, you know, get educated, spend a little bit of money on yourself, you know, to see what is out there. And I know there's different, there's plenty of different people out there selling those education tools, but do your research really well, spend a little bit of money on yourself and then start to invest it. 2
things on that. Firstly, yes, credit card debt. It's really hard to beat on the market, property or stock market, 17% per annum, which is what you're paying on your credit card. So I don't think Warren Buffett gets 17% per annum. Secondly, sounds like he needs to join Business Blueprint, which Joe and I beat Beaumont. It sounds like he needs to join that course.
He has made so much money. Like, it's just insane what he does. And sorry, I'm taking diversity, but he will buy stuff of other kids that they don't want anymore that's branded, and then give someone $20 for it and then go sell it for 70. So I'm just sitting back like an entrepreneurial mum going, that's my boy.
Oh, that's good. Sounds like he might not need the banker mum to get onto the property market, which is hopeful.
I'll be borrowing off him.
All right.
Do you own an investment property? Wash & Brown has helped over 250,000 property investors pay less tax with a depreciation schedule. Visit washandbrown.com.au to pay less tax today.
Question number 6. You've just turned 50. You've got no money. How would you invest? And your parents died and passed away, left you $500,000. How would you advise someone to invest that $500,000? And how, just so you know, there's a financial disclaimer at the beginning of this. So,
Can I ask, is this person in employment and single? Are we making those assumptions?
in employment, they're employed, but they haven't saved any money. There's a lot of those. I've got a lot of friends like that.
Okay, if they're even in modest income, I would suggest that I know people would say go and speak to a financial planner, but if you could, like, I'd speak to a mortgage broker and say, this is my income, this is what my, if they've got nothing, maybe they own a car outright, if they're assuming they've got no other debts, and find out what that maximum borrowing capacity is. And because I'm assuming then they'll be paying rent. And what is it they can actually, I would get security. At that age, I'd want security and I'd want to buy my own property. So if you're living in Sydney, you might be, if you're renting a house, you may have to move into an apartment that you actually therefore own. And also if you can borrow just a little bit more and then focus on making, paying down that asset so that, your goal will be by the time you retire, you almost own this outright. And,
and then it won't affect your pension if your house won't affect your pension. It's your principal place of residence, right?
Yeah. It's just security. I mean, this is the beauty. I guess going back to my childhood, Ty, it's just that I felt there was lacking security, and what property has given me is that I know something happened to one of us medically. If I desperately needed money, I've got options. I can sell something down. I can get myself out of trouble or get a child. I know I've got that behind me, and I think it'd be scary hitting your 50s and knowing you've got nothing. And that's what happens. A lot of people exit marriages where they sell the family home. They find themselves with half the capacity that they could then go back into the market and buy again. And I have a lot of women that are coming at me with those sorts of, what do I do? Like, I don't want to leave the area I'm living in, but I can only have X amount of dollars to invest in now. So this is an investment decision as opposed to a principal place of residence decision. And I help strategize with them what that will look like in conjunction with what advice they get from their accountant or financial planner.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jo? If you inherited $500,000 today, what would you do with it?
I'd be very tempted. You know what I would probably do? I'd put it in my offset account immediately.
Right.
I would do that. Yeah, I would do that. And once I finish the Taj Mahal that I'm building, I've got a bit of landscaping and things like that to do. So I think right now, put on the spot, answering that question, I would think, I get to do all of the things I want to do. Like if that whole party version of Jo kicks in, where you're like, and I'm going to do lighting in the garden, it's going to be amazing, and I'll go finish the pool off, and I'll do a gazebo. But I do come at, it's one of those things with property. It's making sure the business brain overrides the emotional brain. So I would park the money for now. Let me just let the dust settle. And then come back, and yes, I probably would use it to build another, just start progressing my portfolio. Because what I have done previously also, and is that, I'm self-employed, run a company, and I've got a large portfolio, and I've got 3 dependents. So the standard banks don't always look at me and go, yeah, we'll give them more money. That's just the reality of lending. So I have actually done capital raises before to do property developments. I'm not against doing that again or going to a private lender. So I think in conjunction with those other options that I've explored before, I would probably jump into that splitter block that I'm waiting to do a build 3 on, because I know what those returns are going to look like. It's going to be good. So I've just got to navigate that journey, getting to the finish day where I'm not paying construction loans down. I'm actually getting the rent back in. So that's probably where Jo would end up.
Cool. All right. Question number 7. You could go back in time and meet Jo Vadillo, a 20-year-old living in Strathfield, I think you were, was it?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I grew up in Concord, so we could have gone the same. What would you tell your 20-year-old self about investing, Jo?
I would sit that person down and I would say, seriously start to squirrel some money away whilst you're also enjoying your 20s. That's a fun age. I traveled a lot, but I think if I could put that, older head on the younger shoulders, I would definitely say buy sooner. So when I got back from, extensively backpacking, and that went on for a few years, I might add, I then went and put myself through university. So I did a master's degree in my late 20s. So I was kind of a bit of a late bloomer in that sense. And I bought my first property at 28, and I was actually very good at budgeting. I think, traveling a lot made me become very, careful with how I use my funds. So I think if I was, at 20, I would suggest try and get on that ladder sooner And I was nervous buying my first property, mainly because it's the biggest sum of money you could even imagine at that age. But I know, if I could say you're going to earn more, your career's going to progress, you're going to, so I would say start earlier, start to be very careful and conscious of doing something earlier.
I had a bit of a similar journey. I did 2 years at uni straight after school, and then I deferred for 3 years, went backpacking around Europe and Asia. And came back. And the number one thing I learned from backpacking, Jo, was that I never wanted to work for minimum wage again. So I came back and finished my degree. I don't think many people, after they have a 3-year break from university, actually come back and finish it, but I'm glad I did. So that was my experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Question number 8. What legacy do you want to leave your family or your community, Jo?
For my community, I think, and my capacity as a buyer's agent, I've had some beautiful feedback from people, and I know I've changed lives. I know that sounds very dramatic, but people thank me a lot for holding their hand. And like a lot of my clients are single women, women who've come out of divorce. They're nervous first-time buyers, a lot of them, and I'm there to support them. So, it's like, don't take no for an answer. If they don't go straight, like they've gone straight to a bank and the bank said, borrow this much. It's like, how about you go to a mortgage broker? We'll make this work. How about we shift the strategy? And they've come back to me and said, look, thank you, because I would not have actually done this. I would have just taken no for an answer and walked away from the deal. And I know I've changed financial trajectories for people, throughout my journey as a buyer's agent. And that's a beautiful legacy to have and leave. And I want to do that more because I find that so rewarding as well. And for my family, I hope I've given them, my children, or I will continue to give them the ambition and also help the guidance and the confidence for them to build this for themselves, because I want them to hit their early 40s and not feel like they have to work so hard. I want them to enjoy their life. So for them to start building a portfolio younger is really, really important to me.
And what is the average age of a female coming to you from Property Women? Is it women age 50 or younger, or?
I would say on an average age, it might be mid to late 30s, but I certainly have women that are older. So I love the first time buyer. I love helping them out, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know until you go, you need a solicitor, right? So, but I'd say somewhere in the late 30s would be the average age, but there's certainly a big gap there. And I've got women in their early 20s that have come to me, and I'm like, this is awesome. I love seeing the successes at such a young age. And it's also the ones that think that their life's over and they're 49. You're like, no. We've got heaps of time. Let's do something with this, so I can help you get on the ladder. Absolutely.
Is it single women or divorced women? Or is it just women in married relationships, but it's the female component of it, or how's that?
Yeah, generally, what? But I've got a lot of guys on my database as well. So people will say, I've listened to you, I've heard you on this podcast. And also, I've got the two businesses. I've got Property Women and Advocate Property Services. So a lot of my clients are also men. And I'd say in couples, it's probably 50-50. From, one of them's more the driving force. They're the person that is probably, more interested, and the other partner's just there. And they're like, here, I'll contribute to the loan, but I'm not in. People tell me they're not interested in property, which to me is like, what do you mean you're not interested in property? This is crazy. But, they know it's a necessary part of their, acquisitions throughout life in terms of, wealth trajectory. And that's, so it is a bit of a mix, but a lot of them are through Property Women. They do tend to be more single women. I'd have to say that's probably the slightly larger percentage.
Fantastic. What is the main issue that women investors face? Is it confidence, or what is it, Jo?
Oh yeah, look, I would say confidence, and we're still dealing with it. I'm hoping these younger demographics, and I'm hearing that is changing, but especially the Gen X, it was still very much that whole, the husband's still the big income earner. So a lot of women are still in that transition where you're like, you can do this. You don't need to wait for a guy to help you. It's almost like, okay, I can actually achieve this on my own. I don't need to have a partner. So I would say confidence is a big one, but it's also just having a partner around. If they don't have a partner, someone to bounce ideas off. I like this property, and sometimes clients will send me links as well. Like, what do you think? And I'll look at it and go, well, you do realize there's a Telstra tower in the backyard, right? So, because if you are a solo operator, there's a lot to digest when you look at an open home. You walk out of it and you go, oh, hang on, I didn't see a laundry. So it's part of me is just being their wing person in the journey, and I think that gives them confidence as well, that they know they're doing the right thing and they're getting proper educated professional advice to support that decision.
One thing I've learned on this podcast is a man is not a plan, Jo.
That's right. A man's not a financial plan. And I bought my first property. This is actually a true story. The first property I bought in my own name. I was dating Greg, who is now my, but he would go to all these open homes, and the amount of real estate agents would walk in and look at him and get his details. And he's a foot taller than me. And I'll be there going, dude, like I'm the one with the mortgage. Like you're meant to be kissing up to me here. Like I'm the one with the pre-approval. But in hindsight, I'm so glad I did that. Like, I mean, yeah, he was there, obviously, and he enjoyed the journey. He's a buyer's agent. He works with me, we love it. But it was something I did for me, and I did it on my own. And I really love that. I think that gave me a lot of power, a lot of confidence. And I think I see that from a lot of my clients when they, on that settlement day, it's like, look what I did. And that's super empowering to witness.
Cool. Well, speaking of success, Jo, what does success look like to you? Building the Taj Mahal, I suspect.
Yeah. True success, I think, is, freedom and time. I think I created this business and it's worked in so beautifully. When I reflect with my family, it's meant I call the shots. I'm able to be present when I need to be with my kids. So for me, I've been able to create a business that works in and around my lifestyle. It suits me very much. So that to me is a big sign of success. And just having that freedom. I don't have a boss, so I kind of dig that. Greg does. I'm his boss, but no.
Are you a good boss?
Apparently sometimes, but you know what we argue with the most? Because he looks after his own clients and I look after my own. So yes, of course, we know exactly what's going on in each other's world. But the one thing when we work together is we argue about marketing. That'd be the one thing that. So yeah. But otherwise, it's usually a quite harmonious working relationship.
Does he get an annual review?
If he plays his cards right, he might even get a pay rise eventually. But no.
Excellent. I was a bit like you, Jo. I wasn't born with a silver spoon. In fact, I saw my father lose all his money in the late 80s. And so the final question is what this podcast is about is how to not lose money. Warren Buffett quoted as saying, rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. So what would be your advice, Jo, to not lose money?
You know what? One of my other favourite quotes that he did was to be fearful when others...
greedy when others are fearful.
Greedy when others are fearful. And I think about that a lot when the market dips in property because everyone goes, oh, I'm not going to buy because no one else is buying. And then all of a sudden, all the sheep follow and you're like, hey, that property was $200,000 cheaper 3 months ago, So he's a billionaire for a reason. So hang on to your money. You've got to spend a little bit. And by that, I mean, seek out and pay for professional advice. So if it's a buyer's agent, if that your budget allows, if you're starting to build a portfolio, spend money on getting a really good accountant and potentially a financial planner as well. Spend a little to make a lot. A buyer's agent will get you a property that's not a lemon and potentially save you thousands on it as well and find your properties that are off market. And by getting good sound advice and setting yourself up properly initially, you're going to thank yourself 10 times over as the years go on. So yeah, I'd say don't make false economic decisions as well. So for example, I'll buy a property for somebody for $1 million and then they won't want to spend $550 on getting a pest and building report. So it's like, let's not do that because then if the ceiling's about to cave in and you can't see it from where you're standing, that's going to cost you a little bit more than the $550. So yeah, don't make false economic decisions. Spend a little bit of money and invest and make sure you invest in getting a really good team of experts around you. You don't need to be the expert. Let them do the experting, but pay for it.
Speaking of being greedy when others are fearful, etc., I'll tell you another quote. You probably haven't heard this one, but Harry Triggerboff told me once. He said to me, Tyron, do you want to know the secret to my success? I went, I'm not going to say no, am I? Right? Of course, Harry, what's the secret to your success? You're worth $26 billion. He said, listen to me. He said, Tyron, when times are bad, I buy land. By the time I get development approval, times are good again.
Yeah.
That's what did I think of that? Thanks, Harry. But it's a very good quote, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dark times are shorter than the good times as well. And I've seen it time and again now in the market where, all the sheep follow and the prices go up and you're like, if you were in a position to buy 3 months ago, that was the time to make a purchase decision.
Fantastic. All right, there's one thing I haven't told you, Jo. There is a surprise question at the end of each podcast.
Oh, great.
All right. When I was growing up in the late 80s, right, the average house price was $175,000 in Sydney and the median wage was $25,000. So about 6.5 times earnings, right? Today in Sydney, it's $1.6 million for the average median house and the average wage is about 80,000, so 20 times earnings, right? It gets worse though. Back then, stamp duty was about 3%, 3.5%. Today, it's 5.5% on a $1.6 million house. So that's worse. What advice or what 3 tips would you give the younger generation to get onto the property market today?
So I'd say my first one is be prepared to not buy in your backyard, like, you know, in your area. Like, be prepared to buy elsewhere. So, and also, okay, so that's one. Like, but yeah, if you live in Manly, in Sydney, prepare yourself to actually buy somewhere else. But you don't need to live in it. So it could be another, you know, metro location or really bustling, busy regional hub. But, and that can be an investment property. So just get your foot on the ladder. If you're 24 years old and you can just plant it, make sure the rent covers it and it grows. And by the time you're, you know, married and you're 32, you can sell it and use that towards a deposit in Sydney or pull equity out of it and, you know, and continue to keep that in your portfolio.
Yep.
So the second one, I'd probably suggest, you know, if they do look into some of those housing grants that are available, and I know they can change, you know, with the government, but if there's something available that they want to, and it could be that they're moving slightly out of area, 45 minutes away, an hour away, and I know you're meant to live in those properties for 12 months, often to be able to get some of those, you know, stamp duty concessions and other opportunities. Perhaps that's what they need to do. It's a small sacrifice for a long-term gain as well. Have a friend, a mate live with you and share some of that burden so that you're not carrying that full mortgage as well. So, and then keep the property, rent it out to someone else, and then move back to renting in this premium suburb that you want to be in as well. So that'd be my second as well. And the other one is potentially just invest with friends. Look into that. It's one option. I'd always say be very careful and cautious because friendships and money can sometimes be a precarious dance. But, you know, and look, I also suggest that you do actually have an agreement drawn up when you do that. But we've looked after a few groups like that where people are investing as friends. They're coming in and, you know, renovating the property, holding it. They've got exit strategies. I've had a lot of siblings buy properties with me as well. It's always important to have an exit strategy. One of you could partner up and want to get out, you know, at a time that's not, you know, great. So do get some good sound legal advice around that, but have the strategy in mind. And it could be, invest with a friend, do something up, renovate it, put it on the market again. Or well, actually, I don't love renovating, flipping, but my suggestion would be to pool your resources and have a good sound exit strategy. But that'll help you get additional funds to then go and do this again and start to snowball your wealth journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jo, for coming on. Now, how can people contact you if they need some property advice from a guru?
From a guru? Wow. You got to have your people speak to my people. No, I'm very, very...
Very approachable.
Advocateservices.com.au is our buyer's agency business, so you can find us there and put a contact through the site. And propertywomen.com.au is our educational portal for women, and you can then go through there, sign up to our newsletter as well as jump into the Buyer's Advantage course. If you'd like to have support there, but potentially not the full budget as a buyer's agent, that allows you to get access to the brain's trust.
Good stuff. Love it. Thank you so much again, Jo.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Great. If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And if you do, and you leave a comment, send me an email to tyron@washingtonbrown.com.au and I'll send you a couple of my books for free.